Hello. So I'll be recording this session so that you can share it with your colleagues, Mr. Santosh and Srikanth.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So, are you expecting anyone else, Abhilash?
Not at the moment. You can go ahead.
Okay. All right. Good evening, Srikanth and Santosh. Now that we have started on to the journey of learning on storage automation. When you think about storage as automation, so what is the first thought that you get, and how or what do you think is the hurdle that you are currently seeing to start with the storage as automation?
Yeah, actually, my problem is like I can write the scripts. I mean, basic scripts like remote connection or getting the commands done and coming back and analyzing the logs. But the thing is, like, main problem here is running the tools inside and collecting that IO packets and results and like performance monitors completely. Like, we need to run that in parallelly in threads, right?
Yes.
Like if you want to run in instances, there is a problem. Okay,
Yes.
and also making them as a complete package. You see, I can run it as an individual script on multiple servers and initiate it as a scheduler or something like that, right?
Yes.
But running it remotely as a package is different, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I do not know about that.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
My main concern is that.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
In the refined fashion, the query is implementing the OOPS concepts and performing the subtask, which can handle, say, for example, our test environment might have a multiple DUTs. When I say DUTs, you will understand, right? A device under test.
Yeah.
For example, our host system has multiple DUTs, and we need to execute from our local or dummy terminal, which has to get the data, and based on the result, it has to perform certain actions in the other hardware. And combined together, we need to understand the output, and we have to refine the output. Based on that, we can move forward for the other test cases. So that is really the trickiest part. Probably that will comes under OOPS concepts like threading, multi-programming, handling the IO, and also handling the output, which is actually performed on screen of other DUT. If you run certain commands, that is actually printed on the screen, right? A standard input in the other screen, which is actually running on the DUT, where we could not able to give it a, say, for example, our intention of thought process is, let us understand if you have a one particular dummy terminal where you have initiated a single script, it has to start with multiple threads with two different DUTs and start performing some actions. And the output should be printed on my own dummy terminal instead of printing on other screen. Or at least if I can correlate the handling of output based on our intent. Say for example, our packet should be 1000 above. If it is more than 1000 above, then the test case should be passed. But handling that IO is a bit trickiest part for us. Apart from it, we need to understand how we can leverage what are the different modules that are specifically available for the storage perspective. One such kind is we went through the Paramiko library, and we were unable to explore much from there because that is only because we have our own test environments and it has its own libraries which are already customized by other test tool teams. But we need to understand what is the industry standardized, not maybe standardized, or what are the different architectures that are available in the test automation area, where we can leverage our existing skills. Because see, you understand our concern, right? Because we could be able to write one script which can execute in one system. That's it.
Yes, got it.
So, but that it can also happen in remotely, but we are unable to handle the IO properly at probably some regular expressions we are using, but we are not that expertise in using regular expression to take over the output. But we need to understand what are the different output grabbing, like data refining or data analysis kind of is required, not from AI and machine learning perspective, but from the output, from the storage domain perspective. That's what the key takeaways which we would like to bring out from this particular entire program, so that we can commonly see. Because I had personal experience in robot framework and also a framework which is defined on only frameworks on it, and Django at some extent. I think
Okay.
Srikanth is also having some exposure in Django, but that is way back. We tried and we burned our hands. Then we could not able to take that pain, and we left over there because that is more towards pandas or NumPy and taking
Yeah.
some Excel sheet, grabbing some data, refining all the stuff we tried. And we
Yeah.
burned some hands somewhere 3-4 years ago. And
Huh.
our paths are slightly different. I was moved into different roles, and Srikanth moved to different roles. We were
Okay.
colleagues from last 9 years, and it's been 13 years of journey, our togetherness.
Okay, nice.
So that is
So,
our little background. So
uh-huh.
probably quick introduction will help us so that Mayur, which will help you understand while we are mind mapping the conversations. Unfortunately, we could not able to turn on our videos. We are so bad today. Please don't mind. From next time also we'll enable the video and we'll have a face-to-face conversation. Please don't mind.
Sure, sure, not a problem. And moreover, work from home, it is totally understood.
Right. So we are not prepared for video discussions also.
No problem, no problem.
Right.
So again, for the first time, at least you should know who is actually going to train you or who's going to help
But
you understand.
when I sorry to this is quite surprising. Many people might say to you, but the moment I saw your face, it looks familiar for us actually.
Is
By
that so?
chance, are we worked together or somewhere by chance?
By the name, I had many Srikanth and Santosh though, but I don't know for sure. Which
Yeah,
Srikanth
probably our
is
quick introduction journey might help us. Maybe we may cross some time, or maybe in different teams. Maybe I'm not
quite
sure.
possible. So I have been working with Emphasis earlier, so now currently with Mindtech. So it's been like almost roughly around 11 years of experience in the industry, where most of it was into automation itself.
Great.
Yeah, that's what I started with the firmware test and then moved on to the storage automation. So uh, I've been in automation for across industries. So
Okay.
tried like at least three plus frameworks across different clients though. So at the end of the day, it is not the framework that is going to matter. It is the basics that's going to help you. So if you are directly jumping into framework, you will end up going clueless. So there is higher possibility.
We already burnt our hands. That's what I told you. Django,
Yes.
we already burnt our hands. Okay.
When you
We
said
don't
that
want to
we
go in
work
that
with
direction.
Django, we work with Robo framework, that is already on the next level. So if you work with that, you would have a rough idea as to how the framework is going to look like.
Right. So, but we these are all bits and pieces because we have a different teams, but they are not ready to share their knowledge because they have their own limitations and stuff. And being from, we are mostly Srikanth worked in product-based side, so that he has some better knowledge than me. But I always in a vendor side, they are a bit hesitant to share the architecture level diagrams being from vendor perspective because they make copy and use somewhere else. And that's a common fear factor the companies has. So far, I worked with Seagate. I mean, earlier it is Zyratex being acquired by Seagate, then followed by Broadcom, Juniper, AMD, and currently I'm working with Micron. So that's a brief part on the storage side. But from last 2-3 years, I'm not into the storage. And again, I'm moving back to the storage. I'm going to join Dell Technologies in the December. So that is pushes me. This is the right time to spend some time because I'm currently serving notice period here. So that this time I would like to leverage, and it's been more than 3-4 years. I left the storage background and moved to the AI and ML specific test cases and validations. So since I got an opportunity, I want to just move back and put my hands in automation area because we never know when we. As of now, 70% is on still manual. I know that, and 30% again it will go to the automation. I believe the test cases are already ready, but when I want to explore something on new technologies, definitely then the new firmwares or new features will be implemented. Definitely we have to dirty our hands in automation areas basically.
Yes.
So that is where we are looking at.
Yeah, it is more like everyone is pushing for automation, right? So no one wants to leave anything manual.
Correct. Exactly.
So how about you, Srikanth?
Yeah, Srikanth, you would like to add?
Currently, I'm working in Marvell. So most of the time I spend with automating test cases and execution of this feature testing. So basically, when it comes to automation, right, it's completely written in Python. Now they are using Paramiko as a remote execution this thing, and they are going it for porting it to RPYC. Now we are not using any other platforms like frameworks like Robo framework or something like that. It's generic Python everything. So here they are used test FSM for passing the results, and this Paramiko for remote execution, and some other things. I mean, like I'm not sure. I'm not involved in writing the framework itself. So basically, I can write the test cases. Okay. So I'm into testing security features like key generations and encryption and decryption of files, maybe SSL certs, everything. So this is where I'm in here.
Okay. So all right. So when we again, you guys already having an experience on how to write scripts. I don't think it is going to be a challenging task for you to understand how any of the scripts would be and how they generally work, right? So basic syntax. So what would be the language that you feel the most comfortable in so far? Whatever you would have.
And since Python, I actually have, I'm comfortable with that. I can just read the scripts. But I told you, right, I'm not much into making packages and this thing. So single file scripts, I can write it more comfortably.
Okay.
So that is
yes, Mayur. I'm from the beginning perspective. Please treat me in a beginning perspective only. The reason behind is I am always in the execution and debugging side. Our exposure or my exposure towards automated test cases is very negligible because we always had a separate team. But what we generally did is if there is any new feature, execution test case is not working as expected, because we know because I had personal hands-on experience in manual. So what we did is if there is any new feature or any version changes in the tools, what we generally did is if the test case is failed, we will go ahead and validate in manual, and we'll try to identify where the script is actually failed, and we will just highlight it and raise a Jira ticket for it for the changes.
Oh wow!
So
you are overdoing whatever your automation is supposed to do.
Right. So they will never allow us generally. So, but still, I went ahead and I started practicing my own on writing the scripts as well. I had both Perl and Python experience because initially I started my automation journey in Perl. But when it compares to Perl to Python, Python has huge library support and friendly to learn. And there are many. Say for example, if you want to just execute a remote command, there are many ways in Perl and Python, but the easiest way is still people will find it as in Python with 2-3 lines of code. You could able to execute a command remotely, but compared to the Perl, that is and the beauty of Perl is lack of good support, and many libraries are already available. So the moment you need some thought process, there should be already a library already in place. You don't have to write from scratch unless until if you are working on 10 years, 20 years from today. Then you have to think a lot and start owning your own library and start implementing. By the time you have thought process, there should be already a library for it in Python.
By that time, a lot of people would already have developed a lot more libraries by then.
Right. And the moment that the thought process is came into the picture, it's already there is a library. Right. That is the beauty of Python. That's what key understanding. And going further, people are also moving to cloud storage as service instead of a dedicated service. Nowadays, the companies also go narrow down their exposures, and they are investing heavily on cloud storage specific test cases with downtime, less downtime, and latency sensitive applications. So that going further, they are integrating with, if you take it Google or Amazon, they're all on Python specifically. So probably Python is a good catch for us at this instance. But the once you know one programming language, the next is going to be R, Scala, many things.
Pretty much everything is going to be the same. Just the basic syntax is what is going to change.
Right.
You know one language, you know any language. Basic thing is going to be your logic. So as
Right.
long as your logic is strong, whatever language it is going to be the same.
Yeah, right. Good. The point that you made a logic point, and we need also some guidance, being you are from the automation perspective,
Uh-huh.
because there are many ways the code can be or logic can be implemented, right? So we are
Yes.
also looking at some best practices, being a good code, bad code, because at the end of the day, portability coming into the picture and the maintainability is coming into the picture. And I think a few of the bigger organizations are also looking at the standards of coding as well. I think
Yes,
the,
yes.
right now the PEP standard, I think PEP
Pep
8
eight. Yes.
is going to standard. That is also we are seeking some guidelines over there, so that see, if you can look at our experience, right? Like we both are close to 13 plus years experience. They should not once if any new buy join to the team and look at the code, hey, this is just a 1-2 years guy written the code. They should not feel that, and we
Got
need
it.
some maturity in writing the test case as well. That is what we are also looking at apart from our content.
Yes, got it. So basically, our intent also was pretty much to fill up that gap, because writing a simple code is not going to be complex. I think you guys already having tried writing a simple script, you have already explored that it is not going to be that complex. But writing the right way, giving the right standards to be followed, how to create a package, how to modularize it, and how to make it look nicer, and how to allow it to be reused is what is the primary criteria when you are writing a code for more than yourself. So
Right.
when you're
Correct.
automating it, it is more than yourself, right? So it is not only for you. So your entire org will be using that same script. So,
Right. We need to also focus on what are the modules that can be leveraged with the next team or preceding team, so that the existing package can be leveraged. That is also, I think Srikanth is struggling for it actually, because unfortunately I'm not struggling because I'm not personally involved. So we always have automation. I'm not sure in the new opportunity what I'm going to, but Srikanth is always struggling in that area.
Okay. So yeah, that struggle will generally be there. If the framework is not mature enough, you will end up struggling that, okay, you either duplicate the code, and that is unnecessary code dump. So every
Right.
script will have like 10 extra lines of code just because one method is not actually created in a package.
Correct.
So
Correct.
these are the common things that you may encounter that. So yeah, our target itself is to come up with the basic framework construction ability. So you create a package, how do you run it, how do you inherit packages, how do you inherit classes. So inheritance also is going to be a very crucial thing that you would need to understand when you are going to use other packages, right? So even if you want to say modify a certain part of your inherited class, that also can be done. So you don't have to write like all the methods just because you want to change a little bit of what the primary functionality does. So those are the things that we'll get you to create a method, we get you to modify the method, we get you to inherit and then modify part of the method. So all these cross combinations will definitely be there. We'll be going through that. So
Sure,
yeah,
Mayur.
yes.
And is there anything that we are covering on framework specific, or are there any provision, or was there any discussion revolving around just constructing or look and feel like how can we construct a framework by modifying the existing any framework kind of stuff is already there in our curriculum, or it is
Existing
beyond
framework, not really, but how to construct a framework, we will be looking at that towards
okay,
the
great then.
Good.
Great then. That is
That is great.
great,
yeah.
Mayur.
Because again, if you see most of the industries, they don't inherit existing framework. They always build their in-house framework.
Correct.
Right.
That's
So
what
if
that's
you're,
what we are facing.
That
Yeah,
is
that's
true.
what
yes.
we are facing.
So your primary requirement itself is to see that, okay, how do you have a framework? How do you create packages? That's why I said we have that in the curriculum. The primary criteria itself is to know how the framework is created. Now, you may not know how the framework you are going to work on is created,
Correct.
but at least if you know how is it created, you can go back and look at how it was created, what are the modules that are used, how the packages are created, all that flow, you'll be able to understand that in one glance.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a short intro about Upskill IQ. I think you would have already known about it. So we have been coming up with quite a lot of trainings related to machine learning, data science, storage automation being the current hot topic again. Now, if you see that industry is already switching over from manual to automation, and there's a lot of resource crunch for automation in storage industry. So, in that scope, when someone who has been working on manual, there is quite a lot of ambiguity that okay, just like you guys already mentioned that okay, we have looked at the framework, but the depth is not understood, or maybe we should understand everything before we actually get into storage automation. So there are quite a lot of myths. So that was the reason that we came up with this concept as well. So yeah, we have Python, Cloud, DevOps. There are a lot of trainings that Upskill IQ is coming up with. So again, IABAC is one of the org that they have been the certified partners. They'll be certified training partners with IABAC. And Propelled is nothing but your finance partners with the Upskill IQ, and Storage Network Industry Association is also and we are also the member of the Storage Network Association. And yeah, as it's always said, so anything more than once, you always are going to be automating it. So this is how our basic coverage will look like. So we have the introduction to program. How are we actually going to handle the program? Then basic framework, the framework of automation when you are looking at storage automation. And then how would you connect to a local host, and if you were to connect to a remote host, and if you were to say run a few commands or extract content out of a file, all those things will be considered. Usage and creation of libraries, even including your packages and modules. And then we have the areas or features that can be automated in storage. So again, this a very minimalistic understanding on what you can do is going to enable you to understand how you can do the rest of it. So you again, when it is more like when we start speaking in English, right? So for a first timer who is looking at English, it is more like okay, you have to be Shashi Tharoor to actually start speaking in English. So whereas that's not the case, you just start talking, you'll learn that automatically. So a similar thing is what is going to hold good for Python as well. So it is not that you have to understand everything in the first go, but your basic concepts being strong is always going to enable you to do a lot of things that way. So yeah, again, whatever is the most frequently used Linux commands, I think you guys already have encountered all these commands. So how would you execute using a Python script is what we'll look at. And Python, we have all these concepts that we have listed here. So based on variables, objects, mutable or immutable, literals, branches and loops, operators, data structures, and again, you have the functions. Then you have the classes, objects, inheritance, the OOPS concepts. All these things we'll be covering up, and including the error handling and exception handling. You guys may have seen it or may not have seen it. So generally, whenever you are running any scripts, we always need the errors and exceptions to be handled right. If not, your script termination is not going to give you any output on what was a cause of failure, if it is handled it right or not. So expected failures is what we need to handle it right. So that part is what we'll be going through on how to handle it and what best you can do with errors and exception handling there. And then, yeah, we'll have a few use cases on each of those concepts that we have covered here. So host server and remote connections, the NIC and HBA connections, how would you test them, or switch related test scenarios. So yeah, all of these we'll have the use cases for them, and we'll be covering up. And when you're working on these use cases, right, that is when you clearly get an idea on how would you create a framework. So you start with one use case scenario, and we'll break it down into smaller parts. Whatever is a reusable code, we'll be fetching it into a package, and then we'll be inheriting that into every other test. So that will help you understand as to why do you need a smaller chunk of code, and how can you use it in future. So that will be a slow pace, but that is going to give you a very strong result, so that you'll remember it every time. So any questions on the topics that we are covering?
Yeah, nothing much. We got it. So, I mean, do we cover about static methods and wrappers, decorators in this?
Yes, decorators we have.
Okay.
Yes, because those are the most frequently used stuff, so we can't skip it at all. So whatever we
Yeah.
do. Yes.
Okay.
And one more thing, Mayur, just want to confirm. I think Abhilash is already confirmed because we want to have a hands-on experience on this, getting this data right on host server on ICAR HBA.
Yes.
Do we have lab for it already arranged, or it is already thought process is there that is still in building stage?
We do have a lab for this. That's upcoming slide. See, so currently our lab infrastructure has these already set up. So we have the SAN Fabric, the RAID with RAID controller, ESXi server, host to automate your NIC and HBA, OpenFiber. So yeah, they'll be increasing that based on the requirements that we are going to see. So for now, this is where we are at. So we do have a lab. We will be giving you the access once the basic Python part is clear, and once you are through with the basic understanding on how we can handle the data, right? So again, if you see at the end of the day, everything that you are handling in storage, your outputs, it is only string manipulation.
Correct.
There's nothing other than string manipulation, right? So
yes,
how you manipulate your string is going to be extremely important than how you are going to connect to it, because connection is a very small chunk of code. So that is going to be way too easier than you handling the data. So to reduce that overall ambiguity on trying to connect and then trying to manipulate data, we are switching over to manipulating data, understanding the in-depth details on how you manipulate the entire data. Then we switch over to connecting to the system, and then we work on how we'll manipulate the data from the connection. All right.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if you guys actually still feel that these are a myth, but yeah, generally for whoever starts fresh, there are these misconceptions or myths that they have. So very less of functionality on storage systems can be automated, which is definitely not true. That anything and everything that you can manually do can be automated. Now, how much of return on investment is what you're going to get is what should be the qualifying criteria, that if you should automate it or not. So that is the only criteria, but otherwise there's nothing that you cannot automate that way. So on the other hand, say you need to be an expert in Perl or Python. Again, it's not necessarily that you have to be an expert, like I already said. So if you're starting to talk in a language, it is not that you are already an expert when you start talking. So even the kids, the newborn babies, they'll start talking. But yeah, that doesn't mean that they already know the entire language when they start. So similarly, we also start from that same baby steps. We'll get to that place where we can write the code nicely and easily. And it starts with socket programming, not true at all. So you can start with the overall, say, your communication level programming itself. So you don't have to really get into the socket level to actually write any programs onto your storage system. So it all depends on what kind of commands you intend to run. So it is only about, you give a string to the system, it will return a string to you, which you fetch it and you manipulate it. That's all. So you don't have that in-depth coding for any automation for that case. And then automated network must be fully automated to reap benefits. This is again not completely true. Just like I said, so you will have a complete framework, but if you are not able to understand how or where the packages can be inherited, so you're pretty much not having the 100% benefit. So even when you're starting, if you are getting the complete output, it is reducing your effort. that is when you consider that it is reaping you the benefits. So even with your standalone scripts, you're still reaping the benefits, but just that it is not 100%. So if someone else has to write something, they have to either copy and paste it, or they have to try creating a package out of your data, and then they have to equally make it utilizable. So these are few things that you can extend your usage, but at the same time, reaping the benefit does not need to have the complete framework to actually be set up. And our network has been doing well, so we need not automate. So I don't think anyone would actually feel that. So whenever you already have an automation, you try to reduce your physical effort there to look after how the test goes through or how they are reaping the results. So it is more like once you automate, it is considered that it is going to handle all your scenarios. So again, on the coverage perspective, also the question would be like the automation engineer has the responsibility on validating the entire coverage perspective. So just because say manually when you're trying, say, you have 10 drives in a storage system to be tested. So manually when you do it, you don't really do it on 10 drives. You do it like the first drive, 10th drive, and maybe 5th or 6th drive. And you consider that, okay, if they are functioning right, then probably it should sound fine. But then when it comes to automation, it cannot stick to the same numbers every time. You can choose to randomize the numbers. So these are the possibilities that you already have, that every time you run a test, you have either a possibility to cover a random choice, or you can cover all of them if you have the liberty of time. So that is also one of the scenarios. And automation solutions aren't fully mature. It all depends on how the automation engineer thinks, not as to how it is going to be on the execution front. Because if you are considering aren't fully matured, it is more like if I'm writing a standalone script, for me, that's the only test criteria, then it is considered fully mature for me. But in that case, if I have 10 test criteria and I have written like 5 standalone scripts and 5 are yet to be done, and I see that pretty much 4 of them are having similar steps, just a few things to be changed. In that case, yeah, I would still defer to say that okay, it is not fully mature. I have to create a package so that I can reuse everything. I don't have to copy and paste everything. So that's the reason. It is again the perspective on how you want to deal with it. If you want to reduce your own effort, you are going to spend more time on it. You are going to streamline the flow. So there's not a concept that it is not fully mature at all. All right. So yeah, the basic functionality part, like I said, we have either the local connections or the remote connections. So for the local connections, just like I said, so we have the local server to which we provide the input. So basically, again, considering that you are going to run a Python script on your laptop or on your desktop, so your system itself is going to be your local system. So if you are running, say for example, you are running Windows PC and you are giving a ipconfig command, so that will be running from your local server itself. So that is where your host is going to be, and you will be validating that output on what is that extract you want to get, and then results of the use case. So that's how it is going to be. And only in case of remote connections, so if you see that your local server will be more like your Windows system that you will be logging in from, and your remote server is going to be the place where you intend to run your command. So maybe into your labs. So that is going to be your login via SSH, and then after that, it is going to be the same flow. So that way, it is not going to change. The only part, like I said, your data manipulation is going to be your primary part. Connections is not going to be that serious issue. So creating a connection is just a matter of time. So once you learn how to use the modules, you can eventually just call that module and connect to it. All right. So yeah, this is a general structure of how your frameworks would look. So you can see that, okay, to start with, we'll have the import of libraries, your declaration of log path, So basically, any script or any framework when you are writing, every individual script needs to have this, right? So for considering one single test case itself, so you would always start with assembling what you need for your test, correct? So if you need some tools, you will be gathering those tools. Then if you want to store some data, you will make sure that you have the storage location ready, and then whatever test steps you need, you will make ready for those test steps, and keep the commands ready. Prep up that, okay, if say for example you need say certain vendors drives that you want to validate, or certain vendors switches that you want to validate, you'll make sure that given device under test already has that. So all that validation part and your import part is what you start with. And initialization is more like setting up your variable. So what happens is after you know that you have a certain setup, then you would need your IPs where you need to connect. You need your consoles to be ready. You need your connections to be accessible, and you need your say device drivers or firmwares, and all these versions to be up to date. So before you starting to check if it is up to date or not, you have to initialize that. Okay, what are the things that you need to check? So based on initialization, so you can either pass the inputs as a user, or you can expect your script to handle that initialization. So there are multiple ways for that as well. So once you initialize, then you go to setup. So setup is more like how you would want your setup to be when you start your test. So say for example, now you have validated that you wanted like say a few drives from a certain vendor and a few DIMMs on a certain storage device. So if you are looking for a certain DIMMs, then if that does not have a DIMM that you are expecting, then you can always validate that in your setup, just to make sure that my test required this kind of setup. So if the setup is not available, I'll have to quit the test. So what happens when you're doing that is your primary criteria of validating through your test is skipped there. So it will directly tell you that the test failed in setup itself. So quite clearly, your test scenario is not covered. So you have an isolation of what is in your setup, what is in your test scenario. So when it comes to test scenario, you will be directly checking on whatever you are trying to validate. So say for example, in drive validation, you generally have data corruption checks, right? So you can write data, and maybe you can just give a power cycle, and then try to recheck on if the data is corrupted or if it is intact. Small data or huge data, depending on what your requirements are. All those things will come under your functionality test. And then cleanup or tear down. Why do we need a cleanup or tear down? It is more like you running a single script may be more like you are going to handle your setup and cleanup. So you may not really see a need why you need a setup and tear down or cleanup part. So when you clean up your system, it is more like reverting to the original state, so that the next test that is queued up immediately after your first test, that will pick up your setup in the same way that it was in the original state. So you don't have to again go back, check if the system is in ready state for your next test, and then you have to trigger. That is going to be an overhead. So to avoid all that, we follow this basic structure on creating your individual test. So when it goes to framework, the same thing is going on a large scale.
Right.
Yes, yes, Mayur. And at certain cases, I came across this tear down approach is placed before the initiation part actually.
It depends upon what
it
we
depends on
require.
the
At start
right.
or end, we can write it.
Right, correct. But I have seen in the initial beginning itself, after importing the certain libraries, I have seen certain routers or certain switches needs to be reconfigured as per the test needs. So they will first tear down, then initialize, then go for the setup.
Okay, so then
right,
will
it depends
really
on
be a tear down. So that's what I said. So your initialization or setup is more to prep up your system for test. So your teardown is always supposed to be reverting your setup.
Correct.
So teardown is always supposed to be in the last, not in the start.
No. Sometimes what happens here is based on the thought process. See, I will give you the one good example here. Once this functionality test, whatever the intended output is there, sometimes because of we know how this IOPS, XGIG, XCI, these are all working. These were unable to complete the tear down approach. At the time we have to come out, and by the time we will have a test result as pass is already indicated. Only the cleanup or tear down is failed. At that scenario, if you can working on test case 1 and test case 2 followed by other test scripts are being given to the one test automation utility. Let us understand you have a test script 1, test script 2, and test script 1 has different test cases inside one test script. And because of the test case 1 is already executed with the 10 test cases inside it, but test script 2 cannot be executed because the tear down approach is not completed because of the test case 1. You got the point, right? So at that scenario, we face a lot of challenges because this has to be triggered with one of the regression utility being written on Python. We struggled a lot actually. Later we realized that okay, this sometimes in the tear down approach is failed, because of which our entire night 8 hours are wasted. Because the tear down approach is not completed, but our initial script is passed, but we could not able to figure it out why the test the followed by test is not executed.
Yes. So that is the exact reason why we are not supposed to move the tear down to the next script start. Because see, if you are not tearing down or not cleaning up at the end of your script, the next script, be it if it is in the same sequence,
but it's broken. It's broken even if we put in the last. So what we realize is we have called the same library in the initial phase. After importing, then our success rate is moved to 95%. I'm not sure, it is taking slightly higher time than what we are expecting, but our problem is actually solved.
Okay.
I have literally seen in robot framework only.
Okay. So the question would be back like, if it can work in the next script, why can't it work in this script?
Because after configuring certain settings, the communication is lost or something went wrong where it could not able to. After certain period, it could able to reestablish the connection, because we are going to reinstall the port, reinstallation, everything is done.
Yeah, that is where you actually do a polling cycle with the exception handling. So
because of the performance constraints, also we could not able to do the polling, where that is actually impacting our CPU and utilization part. So that is also one.
So,
yeah, it's maybe particular to one particular vendor or customer. Yeah, we faced it. I just want to share it with you. That's it.
Okay. See, generally, what again, based on the general practices, right? So even if you are having a performance criteria to validate, it is always considered that tear down is not the validation criteria. Tear down is going to clean up your system, and your validation criteria is supposed to be under your functionality test. So whatever that polling cycle you say that okay, it is going beyond your performance criteria, you can always restrict that test pass or fail criteria with your performance criteria, and then your tear down function is supposed to run separately within that script, just to make sure that when your script is exited, it is giving a clean exit. So whatever script I run after that should be in a very good state. That is not going to impact. There is no side effects. So it is more like you taking your car to a wash, and if the say whatever scrub they are using or the sponge they are using, if it is already soiled, would you want to give your car for wash? You would be like, no, this is already dirty. I don't want them to touch my vehicle, isn't it?
Right.
So similarly, it is always suggested that okay, once the car is washed, they walk out, then you clean up the setup, keep it ready for the next customer.
Okay, but my point here is we are using tear down on start and initial also. That's what the point which I would like to highlight.
Okay.
That is maybe overhead, but we are not completely moving the tear down from bottom to the top. But our approach is we, instead of the bottom approach, we also utilize the initial before initialization. We use the tear down approach.
Yes, the reason why I was stressing out on that for being wrong is because there are many such practices that have been going through many industries. I mean, you would see quite a lot of places where practices may be like quite haphazard, and it can be a reason that okay, someone would not have had an idea on how to fix it back there, that could be an initiating reason that, okay, this is where it is placed. But then to go on a proper flow, it is always suggested that you have it in the same flow, so that next time whoever is coming up, they don't need an explanation. Okay, this is the reason why you have kept it that way. And yeah, for your connections, I think most of your connections are either going through Paramiko or there is a sub-process module as well. So those will be your remote connection modules. And for local connections, you either use your OS module, and for sending across your mail notifications, we use the SMTP modules. So yeah, these things in detail we will be covering during the session, though. But yeah, just for your basic understanding, right? So we have these built-in modules to just connect to your systems. I think Paramiko, again, you guys have already worked
some basic knowledge we have. That's what.
Yeah. So again, your entire coding is all based on your basic knowledge itself. You just it is more like again referring back to your vocabulary in English. So you know A to Z. You can construct the words. You can start talking. So there's no restriction on any of it. Then. All right. So yeah, I just gave an example on how we would use a Paramiko to create the connection. So just import it, and these are the again when you would say that you have a standalone script where you're doing all these things, you can you see that this is going to be a repetitive code, right? So every time you want to send one single command, you have to write all these lines of code.
Correct.
So we create modules or objects where we can just call one liner, which will do all of this. So that is the reason we are looking for how to create a framework. So once we know how to create a framework, this will look a lot simpler. So you have to do it once, make it general, basically generalize that in a way that you just pass a parameter and you should be able to get the output. So that can be handled. So that is what we'll be looking at in the session. So library creation and linking. So yeah, see, like I was just mentioning. So if you were to call a single method for it, so if you see that, I just created a, okay, basically I missed out the def. So yeah, definition of this particular method, and I have all these lines of code. This is again the same thing that we already had it in the previous slide, right? So if you see that the same SSH client is there, you have this set policy, then you connect it, you run this command, and again, if you see here, I have the host, user, password, and command as inputs for this particular method. So now if I go ahead and call that, these things can be my input, and all I have to call is this, one single line.
Okay.
So you run one command with so many lines. If you were to run like 100 commands with 100 lines, now this is going to be a lot simpler. If you were to do it in the older way, you have to write like 100 into whatever number of lines. It will be like what? At least 3, 4, 100 plus around.
Plus around whatever the lines we want.
Yes. So that many extra lines is what you're going to see. And again, if it is sequential, yes. If it is not sequential, again, this is not going to be the count. That will go multifold. If at all you run one command, you process that data, then you do some calculation on that data perspective, and then you want to run the next command, again, you have to repeat that same number of lines. So yeah, this is just to say the same thing. And yeah, these, I suppose you already use PyCharm?
Yeah, we generally use PyCharm itself, like community edition.
Okay, yeah, that is more than enough. So yeah, I think for general sessions and for general usage of our learning part, this should do very good. So PyCharm and Python installed in our systems is going to get us easy execution time there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, since we are not using any apps, right? So
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
in our companies also we will be using PyCharm itself. I mean, like Community Edition, it's free, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, because what happens is with company generally there could be restriction on you using your laptop for the company related code management, right? So generally they have it in either a remote location, so where you will be hosting your code, and that is where you will be logging in. So uh, most of the cases, not everyone will be having Python, so that's the reason I just
Okay.
have it installed. And these were just a few commands or a few examples that I just posted just for you to understand. Um, Not that you have to restrict to one particular command itself. So if at all you had like the uptime command, you want to run the uptime command, how would it look like? So this is one of them. Again, this is the same Paramiko basic connection. If you see here, again, this is a different command. The who. And this one, okay, this is a bit complex that way. So if you see that you have the arguments that are being handled for whatever your script input, and then you will be handling the rest of the data. Again, for now, right away, you don't have to worry about how all these things are being written. But what I'm trying to say is, eventually you can get there. Right away, if you look at this, this is going to look too much to digest. So yeah, regular expressions, again, we will brush up on regular expressions and get you to a state where you can write your regular expression comfortably. I don't know, you guys have gone through all the meta characters and special sequences, or is it
No, no,
like
no. We basically go through the when whatever is required at that moment.
okay,
Regular
okay, okay.
expression, it's vast, right? I mean,
Yes,
actually,
yes.
so parsing itself is a more
Yeah, yeah.
vast version.
So
Yeah.
again, that gets challenging when you are still looking at the whole view at once. So look at one thing at a time. We can get you there where you can comfortably write regular expressions. And I have also learned the hard way itself. So it is not that I had a trainer to give me any tips and tricks on how to write a regular expression. So now that I have learned the hard way, I know how can I make it easy for you guys. So we can look at that in detail so that you can understand how or what kind of expression will be the shortest and yield the best of the outputs.
Yeah.
So, yep. And yeah, a few of the sample use cases also is what we have. And again, this thing for now, we'll just skip that because there are a lot of things. So if you see that we have multiple code definitions that we have written where we'll be executing that. But yeah, other than just writing the code definitions, we'll also be using the classes and inheriting your classes so that, say, for example, one of these methods needs change. So we can just modify that one method and the rest of the methods can still be utilized as is. So those are a few of the things that will be very helpful when you're using multiple scripts or multiple packages that way. So yeah, just a list of a few sample use cases that we have. So how to firmware and driver update. Again, I think now that at least you have manual test experience, this is something that you would have already covered. But yeah, even if not, we can always have that on our setup that we have in our lab. And then creating a mail. So basically, with the SMTP module, I was just mentioning that we can send mails on behalf of, say, a certain test response, right? So just to say that, okay, so and so test has completed, or this is the result that it had, or if you want to just get a brief summary of what a test did, so you can always consolidate it in a mail and just send it across to yourself. Again, for that, you would definitely need your SMTP server to be configured. So that thing, again, we'll discuss about that. And then we have the VMware on hard drive, list VMs, details of VMs, IOmeter, so various IOmeter tests. So these things we can cover with the setup that we have. So yep, so far these are the things that we have in plan. So what do you think? So do you have anything in mind that probably I would not have covered, or you are explicitly looking for it? Anything at all?
Yeah, I mean, like if you go back to the previous slide, right?
Uh-huh.
This here IO meter, like right, we have only one instance and then one VM, or
Huh.
we have multiple instances of different tools. Like you see here, right? We have multiple VMs. We will be writing. I mean, we will be running the IO meter on multiple VMs parallelly, right?
Hmm.
Or else, and while running IO meter, right, we will also getting the statistics from consider if it is a VM, I mean, like a Windows VM, we will be having performance character, I mean, like parameters, right? And if
Hmm.
it is Linux, we can use PS-ELF to grab all the parameters, I mean, like CPU utilization and the
Hmm.
drive and various parameters, right? And
Yes.
also, do we include that as well? Or
That part we can take a look at that when we are looking at this. But yeah, the coverage perspective again. I think Kanendu should. I don't know if he's online. So on the lab availability part, he should be able to confirm on that. So based on what resources we have, we'll try to cover the maximum that we can have on this. So I don't have a very clear idea on that though. But yeah, if hardware supports, then definitely yes, we can cover that.
yeah, I mean, like not 10, 15 VMs, but only at least
Yeah,
two
yeah,
VMs
I
should be
got it.
good, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and because like I mean, like parallel execution is more important, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
got that. So
right.
again, see what I am trying to get you guys to understand is, yeah, one of the scenarios we test on the hardware, and understanding the concept of it off the line, offline, is also going to help you enable both of them.
Yes, correct.
So,
I understand.
yeah. Basically, what I understand is you are looking at the multi-threading concept there, how to handle
Yeah,
it,
correct.
and how to.
Multi-threading and
Yes,
also parsing. You see, I
yes.
mean, like usually if we go, I mean, like the results of one test tool won't be enough, right? Because
Yes,
we
yes.
need to see how operating system is also behaving with that, right? You see, sometimes when we run IO meter, right, we will have like IO errors that will be might record in dmessage or var logs, right?
Yes.
So we
yes.
need to read, parse through that also, and also get the output also, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that again gets complicated, right? Inside it.
Not really complex, but just because you're feeling that you haven't probably
Correct.
done that with automation. Yes.
Right,
If you
right.
are
We
able
have
to do
not
it
done it.
manually, yeah. So, like I said, if you are able to do it manually, automation is not something that you cannot do. It's just that you need the right tips and tricks. So that's one of the reasons why I was saying that if you are able to understand how to manipulate data, these things are just a matter of connection. Once you connect it, you can always do it.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah. So yes, we can definitely do it. Not a problem at all.
No, okay.
Yeah. So any questions from Santosh?
No, Mayur, I think pretty much is covered. But if there is something is coming up, definitely we'll try to post it. We'll try to discuss.
Sure, sure.
And I feel this is pretty much covered most of the topics what we are looking at. Yeah, definitely if something is where the thought process is broken, probably some ideas may come into picture. Probably we'll try to explore on our own or may seek some guidance from your end so that we can
Sure,
guide
sure.
us in how to we can forward.
Sure, sure. I'll be
And
happy to.
then
Yeah.
timings perspective, I'm not sure whether Abhilash can comment or you can comment because we are thinking that Saturday and Sunday somewhere 11 a.m. would be the comfortable for us where we made up our minds. If anyone else
Yeah,
is
I think
good to join,
Abhilash can confirm on that based on.
Yes, we'll schedule the class accordingly. We can fix a convenient timetable for the current batch and for yours. Okay, so no worries regarding that. Just let us know what are your convenient timings and what timings Mayur is available. And what timings the current batch we are running on. So we can figure out a way for all the three to be accommodated over the weekend.
Sure. Srikanth, what do you think? 11 a.m. works
Yeah,
for
11
you?
a.m. is good actually. Saturday 11 a.m. Saturday and Sunday 11 a.m. is good. But everyone has to get to the common point, right? Common understanding.
Yeah, 11 a.m., 12 a.m., sorry, 12 p.m.
Yeah.
somewhere around because See, Saturdays post lunch we are lazy. Because that is where we have to take rest. Though we are working
Saturday or
from home.
Sunday. So
And also
that's
we
right,
need
right.
some time to practice also, right? Whatever we
Correct.
learn.
yes,
correct.
yes.
If it is evening time, that it will also like
Oh.
we won't be able to practice that much.
Yeah.
If it is in the
It'll be
morning
too
times,
tight.
right? Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
we will be able to practice it in the afternoon or evening times, so that we will be get ready for the next Sunday class,
Uh-huh.
right? So you guys will be only scheduling on Saturday, Sunday, or weekdays also? Continuous.
Weekdays, I think, yeah, it is going to be hard because
Yeah.
again, unscheduled calls start up and we never end, and the schedule will be pushed. So I don't want to
Actually,
commit at
Srikanth,
times
better to be on weekends only because we never know, right? We are unable to
Yeah,
predict
no,
the
I'm
meeting
not.
invite.
Yeah, correct. I'm also very much comfortable in Saturday and Sunday itself, but just
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah. At least we haven't really thought of weekdays for sure because neither for me nor for the engineers who are going to join the meeting as well, the training as well. It's going to be hard for everyone that way, right? So
Yeah.
either one of us are not available. That will be a question as to okay, now what do? We continue or we hold?
Mm.
So that for that thing we are just keeping it on weekends. Yeah.
So
So-
one more thing is like, I mean, like in a PPT, what Santosh shared, right? It was going to be 40 to 45 hours of this training, right? So it will be continued for 4 to 5 weeks or something like that.
4 to 5 weeks. That's all.
It means that a breakup because
Breakup.
if you are considering 1 or 2, for example, in Saturday, Sunday, if you cover 2-3 hours, then followed by next Saturday, Sunday, right? How it is going to be?
How
That's
you
what
are
the-
going to?
Yeah, right.
Okay. This one, I think it is roughly. Should
What
be
is the
taking
current
around
schedule?
2
Yeah,
weekends.
what is
Yeah.
the current schedule that is going on?
It should be roughly around 8 to 10 weekends.
Oh, 8 to 10 weekends. Okay.
But we can start your batch as soon as possible. Preferable date is the 26th. But as of now, we are just focusing on the lab sessions for the current batch.
Mhm.
So we'll schedule your batch accordingly, and we can get started.
Yeah, no problem. No problem, Abhilash. But feel free to schedule at least 1 week in advance so that we will not plan over weekends.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, because if you are now sending invite for tomorrow and day after
Yes,
tomorrow,
we can.
sorry, I'm not available. Because Monday to Friday morning 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. we are all occupied, and there are certain household activities needs to be performed at least only on weekends.
Yeah.
Actually, we are
Otherwise,
expecting like this training would have been gone with last week demo.
Right.
This demo.
So that by this time we would have been started actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
very
right.
unfortunate. It was rescheduled multiple times. That's okay.
Okay. Then what we can do is we can arrange the classes to begin from next weekend onwards.
Yeah.
And it can be a convenient timing, as you said, 11 a.m. or 12 a.m.
Yeah, I think
Not all
we'll
like 12
check
PM.
with the batch as well. So based
Yeah.
on that, we can confirm it to them.
Yeah, you can confirm it. Because if even for 10:30 is also fine. Because if it is getting
Sure.
delayed, maybe we'll have to catch up lunch also.
Not a
Yeah.
problem for us.
So
10:30 is also
yeah,
fine.
10:30 is also fine. But 10 is going to be a bit stringent for us.
Yeah.
Nearly
10 is
Saturday.
not to be too early for anyone after a long week's work.
Right. Correct.
So yeah,
Right.
not definitely at 10, but yeah, if it is 11 also, we'll just confirm with the other batch and then we'll let you
Sure. No problem, Maya.
know.
All right then. I hope all your queries have been clarified. We can get started on scheduling the batch as soon as possible. And I'll
Sure.
keep in touch with you, Mr. Santosh, and hopefully Mr. Srikanth also we can add into a.
Yeah, I will be joining.
Right. He
Santosh,
will
not
be
a
joining.
problem.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just you
right.
can communicate with Santosh, the timing and everything, the schedule. So I will be joining on time.
What
shouldn't
about
be a
your other postmates?
Right. One guy is confirmed, I believe, that he could not able to join because his own brother's marriage is settled. So he was a bit awkward for at least another 1 or 2 months because that is only the Saturday, Sundays he's occupied and do the certain stuff. So other guy mentioned that he will join. I don't know. He didn't even answer my call. Probably he's in Friday. We have super duper weekends. Obviously, we have to catch up certain things.
No,
So
I
I'm
think
not sure.
we can share the recording of this session with him.
Sure. We
After
can.
upload it.
Yes, I have one more this thing. How about the recap session? Certain times we could not able to attend or some personal emergencies, right? It is the sessions are continuously recorded so that we can recap it actually.
Yes, we do record the sessions for any such references, and we
Yeah.
also give it to you for any
Yeah,
reference.
future reference also, right? Because
Yes,
we can replay and we can.
Yes, no worries.
Yes.
about that.
Okay, fine then, because this is 8 to 10 weeks, we never know what will happen in the weekends. So
Yeah.
just curious about it. Just for one also one candidate, they cannot reschedule the overall session, right? So that we can at least replay and seek for some guidance or queries so that it can be addressed in next session.
All right, no worries. We'll schedule it accordingly. So no problem.
Sure, Abhilash. Yeah. We can seek for further updates from you, Abhilash. You can feel free to get in touch with me.
Yes.
We can proceed with the structure, whatever you feel. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Abhilash. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayur, for taking over.
Yeah, thanks, Mayur. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
giving detail
Abhi
and
and Mayur.
listening to patiently answering our queries.
Definitely, I'm here for that.
Yeah, I appreciate your patience as well. Apart from the